Hey, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. Listen, how do you go from being a broke single mom who's an immigrant who was in $135,000 in debt? How do you go from being a single broke immigrant mom, $35,000 in debt, to selling your business to Bill Gates for millions? How do you do that? Well, that's the guest. We have Beate Chelette on today, and we're going to blow your mind. I'll see you back in a minute. Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. You're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. Beate, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. Am I saying your name right, by the way? Is it Beate?
You're about 80% there, Beate. You just forgot the final one in the end. But I always jokingly say, Vickie, well, first of all, thank you for having me. But I always say, like, once you know my name, you'll know it for life.
Yeah, Beate. It's hard to Beate. I love
It's hard to Beate, yes.
I just want to welcome you to the Coffee Break Show. I'm so excited to unpack this conversation with you. And I just want, listen, if you're new to the Coffee Break Show and you don't know anything about Beate Chelette, she is a growth architect and a founder of the Women's Code. And we're going to break that down, what the Women's Code is, during this show. But she's had a proven track record for generating over 30 million in revenue for her clients. She's already in the big bets. Beate is a recognized global thought leader and one of the must-follow entrepreneurs, as featured by the Huffington Post. So she's kind of been everywhere. As a first-generation immigrant who overcame $135,000 in debt as a single parent, just that single mom, she bootstrapped her passion for photography into a highly successful global business and eventually sold it to Bill Gates in a multi-million-dollar deal. And she also hosts a show that is the Business Growth Architect Show and podcast. You can see it on YouTube, and we'll go over that in a little bit. I just want to welcome you here. I think there are so many successful women and so many women who are on the track to becoming successful that maybe aren't feeling that great or are overwhelmed, and they need to hear a story like yours. How did this start for you? How did it all begin? It's such an interesting amount of success that you've had. And, gosh, I can't even wait. Just how did you start? How did this happen?
Vickie, I mean, the start is probably not as interesting or as amazing as most people think. I mean, I just didn't fit in. I was the kid that grew up in Germany, and I wasn't smart. At least that's what I was told, or
Yeah.
not as smart as my brother or my sister. And so I'm struggling in school, and the learning, regurgitating, remembering.
Yeah.
It's just not really my thing if you don't, you know what I'm saying. And then
Mhm.
and then we go into this aptitude test, and just in case nobody knows this or assumes it is true, Germans take everything extremely seriously. So I'm going through a 16 pager of aptitude test. Do you like being outside? Yeah, I do. Do you mind carrying stuff? No, I don't. Are you afraid of heights? No, I'm not. And guess, Vickie, what the aptitude test said I should be?
An airline pilot.
A roofer.
A roofer.
A roofer.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
there's something I wouldn't want to
that's what
be.
I said. So she looks at me and she says, "Well, Beate, I can see how maybe being a roofer is not your ideal job, but how about you are what else do you want to be?" And I said to her, "Well, how about a jewelry designer?" She says, "Yeah, there's lots of applicants, no jobs." I said, "Well, what about a textile designer? You know, that's someone who does all these fabrics." She says, Not enough, not enough positions, a lot of applicants." And then she says, "What else?" I said, "A photographer." And then she says, "Too many jobs and not enough jobs, too many applicants." I'm like, "This is ridiculous." And she says, "Well, why don't you become a secretary?" And I said, a secretary, where is any of what I just talked about being a secretary? That's how it all started, with a clear understanding that clearly what is meant for other people isn't going to work for me. And I bet much of your audience, Vickie, can relate to this thing.
Oh yeah. That's probably why the number one reason we start entrepreneurship. I mean, the glory of it is that you don't fit in. And the sadness of it is that you don't fit in. But after a while, suddenly your uniqueness will fit in over time. As an entrepreneur, it makes sense. This is so interesting from that place. I mean, there's so many people who go through this, and they women especially. I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, and they start that inner critic. And you're trying to find out where you fit in the world, and all the jobs that you're like, I don't want to be that. So what happened next after that? I mean, this is so, how did you become an immigrant, and when did all this happen, and what happened next?
Yeah, so basically at that point, I realized that this wasn't going to be, they were useless to me, and I
Yeah.
became a photographer anyway. So I was applied to a photography school. So my only degree to this day really is being a trained photographer. But very quickly, I figured out that my skill was the business side behind crazy creative ideas, that I wasn't as good as an artist as I wished I could have been or would have been, but I was really young. I mean, I left when I was 17. I moved to a different city, went to school. So I started very, very young. And I feel that in order to be a good artist, you just have to have the time, the pain, the experience, so that it'll show up in your work. And I knew that in order for me to make money, I didn't have that time. I wasn't looking forward to a 20-year lifestyle as a bohemian. That looks good on TV, not in real life. And so I went into the business side of things, and then applied for a job at a magazine as a photo editor. I didn't even know what a photo editor was. And so they took me on as an intern with photo editor responsibilities. And then they made me the photo editor. And then and once I had my photo editor recognition, I moved on to Elle magazine in Germany. And I was the photo editor at Elle magazine in Germany. By everybody's book, a great job. I mean, I was making really good money for somebody who was 21 years old.
Yeah.
And I was having a big, powerful job. People would do anything for me. And then something interesting happened, Vickie. My dad got laid off, and he was a CEO of a dairy company. And I realized that I had a lot of his traits that I had assimilated. And
Interesting.
there was a point where I said, the reality of this is people will do anything for me because I'm a photo editor at Elle magazine, but I don't think anybody really likes me. So I said,
Oh,
I need to do something where I like myself. So I need to go on an adventure where the title and just as a quick background, I come from a very traumatic childhood with my mother who has mental issues. And my entire life, I always felt that if I was better, if I only, was good enough, that I
oh yeah.
could prove my value, which I'm sure you've heard 1,000 times.
Mhm.
And so at that point, once I had received that recognition and she saw Elle magazine, like nothing I did before she would ever be proud enough of to show. But when I was at Elle magazine, now the magazine was laying on the coffee table for everybody to look at. And
Of
that's when I
course.
knew I could take care of myself.
Wow. Wow. That's really something. There's so much of us that, as humans, whether we're men or women, where the people we want to make proud of us, somehow it gives us a level of certainty or authority or confidence when our parents are like, "Oh gosh, I'm proud of you." And it's authentic. It's not BS where it's like, "I'm proud of you, honey. You can do anything you want in this world." There's actions behind that proud, and that action of
Yeah.
laying that magazine down, that's when you knew, okay, she didn't even have to use words. But when it was around the house and you had hit that point, I love the discernment you had. You were like, "You know what? I'm in a position where people will do anything for me because I have this position, this title, and I'm at this popular magazine. But that doesn't make them like me. And there is some part of you in that discernment that said, yeah, it's not what I want. Even though you hit the pinnacle at a young age and you were very talented going into that, you were suddenly thinking, yeah, I'm a lot like my dad in that business realm. And you decided then to do something different. You left, and then what ended up happening?
Yeah, so then I went to America because I felt I wanted to do something that I always wanted to do that I was always afraid to do. I was seeking adventure, so I went for the year abroad. I sublet my apartment. I quit my job. 6 weeks later, I'm sitting on an airplane next to a guy who had like head to body rash. So I was sitting on a whatever 9 hour flight to Miami with somebody who was just constantly scratching himself from head to toe. I will never forget that, and I'm sitting there, Vickie, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the bloody world am I doing? This is crazy. And then I went to Key West. I was an au pair for $100 a week
Now that's a vastly different career.
on a houseboat without running water or electricity, or for such matter, a toilet.
So you went from this pinnacle creek down, now you're in Florida and you're an au pair on a houseboat that doesn't have running water or a really good toilet.
And that's when the journey began to really figure out who I was and what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to have my confidence out of what I was doing. I wanted my confidence out of who I was. And that's when my lifelong journey into self-development started. And I stayed there for about 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And then I went to Los Angeles. I always knew that Los Angeles was my final destination because Los Angeles is the city of misfits. So everybody that doesn't fit anywhere else fits magically in the city. It's an absolute miracle.
Yeah.
And so I started working as an artist representative for a company here. And then they asked me to start a photography representation company. So I stayed within this photography theme. And then the recession started to hit. And I was pregnant at the time. And just after I had my baby, I was laid off from this job. And the guy said, this photography representation doesn't do anything anyway. Just go ahead and take it. And that's how I was thrown into starting my own business and building up my first business. And I was a photographer representative, and then I added photographer production. So over the course now of the next 10 years, I started to, like I was at 300,000, at 500,000, $250,000, $750,000, $250,000. And I kept having these massive challenges. So we're talking fires, floods, riots,
Of course.
the
Yeah.
big earthquake.
Yeah.
And every time I felt I was just at that point where I could enjoy my life, it was like somebody came with a frying pan, not the super light ceramic frying pan, the cast
Cast
iron
iron. Yep.
frying pan,
Mhm.
and whacked me over the head. And then there was a moment, and I bet you can relate to this, Vickie, and I bet a lot of your listeners can. I'm standing in the desert and I'm producing a still photography shoot for Wrangler. I mean, great client.
Mhm.
And, and there's the motorhome and the truck and the models and the photographer, the crew. It's beautiful. Everybody's working. Things are going seamlessly. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not enough. I want more.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I felt that I wanted to do something on a much larger global scale, that my skill set, my intellect, my knowledge was kind of going to waste, even though I was in everybody's world successful again.
Mhm. Yep.
And then I think spiritually, it set up a series of events that then completely changed everything again, because then I'm now at $1 million in my revenue. I mean, it's good, right? I'm happy. I'm making
Mhm.
money. My photographers are working. My production is working, but something's not right. Have you ever had that feeling, Vickie, where you go like,
Yeah, I wanna pop that there, because this is the thing. There's a very interesting thing that you're talking about in this level of success. A lot of people, when they talk to us, they're like, well, it was a trajectory straight up to success. No, it's not. It's those milestones that you hit that also hit you back where you got knocked down, beat up, etc. And you keep going, you keep going. And you think that somehow when you achieve the big 7 figures, it's something is going to make you happier. You're finally going to have arrived, or something is going to happen in that way. And I know that place too. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And you find out, this just isn't what I thought it was going to be. And there's still something that you're craving inside that the outside cannot provide for you. And that's the actual journey I think all of us are looking for. And what happened next when you hit your journey in that? I love this is where this is going.
well, God clearly heard me. And then it got very not pretty very quickly. So I had an employee who got too close to a key vendor, and then they had this great idea on how to run their own business, which was my business without me. Next
Uh-huh.
thing I know, so I fired her because I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on behind my back while I was out
Yeah.
there
Mhm.
producing. And I find out that they had contacted my clients,
Oh my.
and they had invoices that were due to me paid to them. And because I
Mm.
didn't know any better, and because Germans have to be right, I suppose, I don't have any other explanation for that. So I sued them. I mean, wasn't that the right thing to do? So I filed a lawsuit for misappropriation of trade secret, theft,
Mhm.
fraud, and the whole 9 yards. And I was definitely right. I mean, this was definitely happening. So now I'm embroiled in this huge lawsuit, but I had just lost this entire division of my business, the whole photography
Yeah.
representation, because as that ship sank, guess what everybody else did? They said, oh, you are taking your eyes off the ball now with these guys. So I'm leaving too,
Yeah.
because I can see you're in trouble and I don't want to be anywhere near anything that doesn't look. I mean, this is LA after all. This
Mhm.
is Hollywood.
Yeah.
If it doesn't look good, we're not doing it. And so I lost this whole division, $500,000 in a very short amount of time.
Mhm.
And so I am now, without that income, I am really fighting to figure out, well, what do I do? So I sued them, and now I'm starting to go into debt because I have to pay for the lawsuit.
Sure. Sure.
And so next thing I know, I'm $130,000 in debt with just the lawsuit.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking production season's coming around again, because this was in December. Now we're in September, and now I'm flush. My production jobs are booked. You know, Wrangler's coming back, Levi's coming back, Mercedes-Benz is coming back, BMW is coming back. It's great. I'm going to make it, no problem. And then it is September 11th.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
One day.
Yep. I got to admit, my business on September 11th, one day we were flush and the next day we were gone. Just like that, overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Sorry, we can come. Sorry, we can come. Sorry, we're not coming on a plane. Nobody in their own right mind will go on a plane flying to America right now.
Mhm.
Too dangerous. We moved our production. Sorry, 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 sorry. I mean,
Yep.
it was literally over. So I kept pretending that I had the money and fought. The lawsuit settled not too long afterward, but it settled for literally zero, like zero. So I had gone through an entire year, fought like a lion, had the tragedy of September 11th, and then I ended up with nothing. So I had to start all over again. So now I have this idea, Vickie, of building up the stock photography syndication, which ironically or coincidentally was an idea that I got from the guy that betrayed me.
Well,
You know, don't say God or universe or spirit doesn't have a sense of humor. It sure does.
it also has the absolute best kept set of records. Karma can swing around,
I have
it
never
is,
heard that. I love that. The
it
best set
does.
of records.
It does. There are no mistakes. And they know
No,
everybody's intention. They know everything. Yeah.
100%. And so now but I learned a lot of lessons. So the lessons I learned, number one, don't bother with C players, go after A. Go after the A list.
Yeah.
When you have the A list, you don't need to worry about B or C because they're gonna tag along because you got the A. So when
That's
people say,
right.
"Well, start with a lower level," no, 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 no. Go right to the top. Go where people are able to make decisions. So I was able to secure now some of the top photographers in this industry, and I'm
Cool.
able to bring in their archive. However, this was pre-digital. So I had to figure out how to make an offer too good to refuse for
Yes.
them to give me their archives, and which I did. But it was all out of
Now,
pocket.
I want to stop right there because I think that's a big deal for every single woman or man listening. That offer that is too good to refuse. The offer is the big deal right there. That's the thing. And negotiating that's where the artist, the photographer is great. And the business development person, the strategist behind that's the negotiating the deal and closing that deal. I love that. But I didn't want to run by that because a lot of people think
Yeah.
I'm going to be a photographer and make a lot of money, but then they don't know how to do that. And I think that was important. So what happened after? So you have all these top level photographers, and now you're making a deal with them, an
I'm making a
offer.
deal. Yeah. So I negotiated the deal too good to be true, which is like I'm flying to New York. I'm going in their office. I'm taking the boxes. I'm fully responsible for shipping that stuff
Yeah.
somewhere to India to be digitized. I'm fully responsible for the expenses of building up the database. That was pre CRM. That was pre all of it. So we had
Yep.
to, we did this in FileMaker Pro. That's
Yeah.
how long ago this was. And so we built up this thing. And so the equivalent to relationships today is now what we're seeing with AI, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
all these things. There is now a new technology that's coming up that you don't even know how that's going to affect your business. So we knew it was happening. I knew it was happening. And so I was trying to figure out how was I going to position this. But it costs money.
Yeah.
And I didn't have sales yet
Yeah.
because I had to first pay the money to digitize and put it up. And then I had to pay for the services that it cost before I could make any money. So
Wow.
that's when I went into debt again. 10,
Yeah.
20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Now we are at $135,000. Now I'm at a point where it gets dicey, Vickie. When they always talk about burn the bridges. Well, believe me, there was no bridge left. I had to borrow money to pay interest on borrowed money. Anybody in finance who's listening to that strategy is probably going to cringe right now in a fetal position on the floor behind the
Yeah.
sofa.
Yeah. That's a lot of pressure.
That is a lot of pressure. I
Yeah, it
trained
is.
myself only to think about money twice a month, which is when I had to pay bills. And then when that was done, I had to focus back on what
That's
I was
right.
going to do.
You go, girl.
And so now we are at a point where I have this great idea. We're getting great feedbacks. We don't have the big contracts yet. And I fly to Germany and I need to drum up some business. And my dad has a stroke. My father did not have a stroke, Vickie. My father had pancreatic cancer and he
Oh,
died
I'm sorry.
in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So my best friend, cheerleader, supporter, you can do this. He's dead. I'm paying for the funeral with money I don't even have. And this was the time when sometimes they say you just have to surrender, where
Mhm.
I had to fully surrender. I mean, I'm deep in debt.
Yep.
My dad died.
Yep.
Y- y- I don't even know what I'm going to go back to because I don't have any income.
Mhm.
And my phone rings. It's my office in Los Angeles. And they told me we've just been served a notice. We're losing the house.
Mm.
I fell to my knees. I raised my fist to God. I'm standing on this picturesque little mountain in Nether Bavaria with a Baroque church behind me. The bells are ringing. My father, literally, we just put my father in the grave. I was the last one to leave when this happened. I fell to my knees. I raised my fist and I said, "Dear God, if you have a plan, this would be an excellent time to fill me in."
Yeah.
And then I surrendered.
I think that is, a lot of people don't understand how spiritual business is. They're like business and spirituality should be separate, but they're together.
Mhm.
And it's such an interesting thing about surrender because in surrender, it's like your mind and its want to control everything stops enough so that the other part of you, the soul of you, can finally come up and be in charge and listen. And in that listening, that's where the problems get solved. But if it's like, hi, my ego runs this company or my surrender runs this company, that's a massive thing that you talked about because there's everybody always thinks that the road to wealth is paved with ease, and it's not.
Oh, the
And
princess story.
yeah,
No, the queen story. She woke up a princess one day. Everything went great. Then somebody gave her the crown. She became the queen and lived happily ever after.
I
Like,
know it's
never.
like that doesn't happen. And one of the things that molds us is that defining moment
Mhm.
where you're either going to throw in the towel or surrender. And surrender is a higher self form of expression. I'm so enthralled in this. What happened next?
So now I come back. We have to figure out what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
It is horrible.
Mhm.
Um, and I finally, after all this time, get a meeting with the largest image distributor in the world. They're used to having people come in with millions of images that they can take in their database because they had the best distribution and sales system in the world. We're talking about Getty Images.
Mhm.
So I walk in, I'm sitting in this room in Seattle with all these executives, and it's just me. And they said, "So, well, we like your collection. How many images will you be bringing us?" And they're expecting like this astronomical number. And I said, 453. They kind of look like you looking right now. they almost, they had this like, is she serious? Should I laugh or should I just throw her out right away? And they say, well, we typically deal in much larger numbers. And then I reframed it for them. And I said, so here's the deal. This is all A-list. My photographers don't need to take hundreds of pictures. They take one, the money shot, because that's the cover of Vogue. That's the cover of
Yeah.
Casa. That's in Architectural Digest. That's the home of Julian Moore. I said, we don't need to do that. I said, I'm sorry if you think that you need to look for somebody who's just giving you a quantity of images. I said, I'm not the right one. But if you want me to give you the top of the line and not clog up your database and make this an exclusive, highly curated collection, you feed me the sales data, I give you more of what you sell. And we got the contract. Now, until that kicks in, of course, that takes time.
Yep.
But I'm now at this moment where I may not make it, right? Because we are in this critical piece where I'm completely out of money.
Yeah. And you know what? Every person who's listening to this in your business and you're at this point, I've been there. She's been there. You may be there right now. This is just a moment of in time. Where you are is not who you are. And the difference between a Beate and most everyone else is she figured out who she was first. And now it doesn't matter where she is, she knows who she is. So, this is why it's working for her, the negotiation, the absolute. My people don't take hundreds of pictures, they take the money shot. That's it. That's the way to negotiate. This is thrilling. Keep going. I'm like, I really love this.
Now I'm getting a letter from the White House. The White House, the President of the United States. Because in my absolute desperation, Vickie, and if I'm really honest, because my former mother-in-law was such a nag about this. You got to write the president of the United States. He's your president too. If anybody can help, she's the president of the United States. He's the president of all people. He has the most power of everybody. Why don't you write a letter to the president and ask him for help? I'm like, I cannot listen to this anymore. I am going to write the letter just so we do not have to talk about this anymore. So I just write the letter. I'm like, whatever, whatever. Here it is. You always talk about the small business being the backbone of the American economy. I have done everything right. I'm raising my daughter right. I'm working my butt off. I'm doing everything that's asked me. I've employed people. Here I am. I can't find the money. It's not my fault that the September 11th happened. I need help. I get a letter from the White House. The president sends his best wishes. Of course, the president never saw this letter. It was written by somebody, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But now I get a call from the second in command from the Small Business Administration here in Los Angeles. Not some underling, not some underwriter, not somebody, some cog in the wheel somewhere, the second in command. And says, come on in. I want to meet a person that writes to the president of the United States when she has financial troubles with her business and ask her, why didn't you come to me first? So I walk in. I had written a business plan, so I was fully prepared. So it's a big lesson here, and I'm sure, Vickie, you're going to jump in on that. So it wasn't that I walked in, bright-eyed.
What do I do?
What do I do?
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, no, I had my business plan written. I wrote it from 9 o'clock until midnight every night when my daughter was in bed, and every weekend. Okay. I had whiteboarded all the numbers everywhere. I was ready. I had my portfolio with my photographer samples, and I walked in and he said to me, I put in what you put in. 3 months later, they found me a bank that was taking my $135,000 in debt, restructured it in a 10-year fixed loan. That freed up my line of credit. That got me to break even 3 months later. 18 months late, because that's when the contract kicked in. Then 18 months later, I am the world leader in my category because these photographers, which I didn't even think about, they were the best in architecture and interior photography, worked with the best architects and the best designers. Remember, I went after the A-list. So the A-list, of course, works with the other A-list. And what do? They work with A-listers. So next thing I know, I get Home Story from Julian Moore, Simon Baker, Francis Ford Coppola, Madonna. And the guys say, you're doing such a great job with these images. Do you know how to resell those? I was a photo editor at Elle magazine. I used to buy these stories. So I built up a global network. We sold into 97 countries in the world these stories, and I became the world leader. That's what brought the Bill Gates company to me and said, hey, are you going to tell us how you do it? I'm like, absolutely not. You want to know how I do it? You have to pay me. How much? I said, millions. They said, fine. That's how I sold my business to Bill Gates.
And that's such an interesting piece of it, because I want to talk about the acumen you have. And Beate, the thing that is so interesting is the marriage between photography and business. Here's the art and here's the business aspect of it. Your business skills that maybe you learned from your dad. I don't know. He was a CEO for a long time till he died, really. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about your story is that throughout it, you've named significant things that have helped you get to where you wanted to be. One is you have the reverse advice. Those people that told you to start with the C list, go to the B list, and go to the A list, because that's what I was taught, go C, B, A, etc. But I found a way to go from unknown to A list just like that. And that one skill set, that is a boost in influence and credibility, etc. The other thing that you did was you were willing to work your ass off. You worked your ass off. The thing that you did very well, you networked really, really well. The network between what you knew from Elle, you really got a lot of education at Elle and used it. But one of the things that you were there, you created these relationships with the best photographers and these vendors. The third thing that you did, you were willing to confront and have hard conversations. I mean, hard conversations when you knew that they were stealing your vendors and manipulating you instead of just crying and etc. You were like, okay, I have to face this. And that's another thing that I think a lot of people run from the pain of stuff and facing it. You actually stepped into this suit, filed it, and then you went through the most turbulent season of your business, which is here's 9/11. And I was living in London when 9/11 happened. I wasn't even in the United States. My company and my business was overseas. And one of the things that I remember from that happening is everything stopped. Travel stopped, email stopped, everything stopped. And it was tumultuous for a long time. There was so much fear from it. It was just like it bottlenecked. And what you had to do during that time was literally surrender. And there's this thing from Oprah Winfrey where she talks about one of the things that she prays and she sings it. It's her chant. It's her mantra. And she says it all the time. She says, I surrender all. Even if she'd surrender it all. And that's where you hit. You got to the point where you surrendered. Now, she didn't surrender her business acumen. That's not what she surrendered. She didn't do that. She surrendered her thinking mind and went to her higher self for the answer. And when the answer came, there was a part of her, she says, I do two things in a day. That day I worry about payroll, etc. That's the day I'll do that twice a month. But then I am back on it and I'm focused on things that are going to move myself forward. I love how strong you were because it doesn't matter if you have a business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're going to run into calamity, full stop. That's the thing of the entrepreneur. Then her negotiating skills, the ones that she made these relationships, these A relationships from the start. She wasn't trying to work her way up and then get an A relationship. If she had done it the other way, imagine the outcome wouldn't have worked out. You want to go for the top of the line right from the beginning. And I love that you did that. And that networking piece. And then Bill Gates acquired your company for multi-millions after you had gone through because what happened after 9/11. It wasn't like there was great cash and the credit was everywhere. You had to negotiate with banks, negotiate with people, and continue. And one of the things that you had to do was make an offer that was so good and know what you're doing. And it's like your art is there. You're a great photographer and your business acumen was there and you knew what to focus on. So I want to ask a couple of 3 questions right now. Let's say, I just want to talk to the entrepreneurs right now that are listening to this show. And maybe you're not even thinking, man, I hope Bill Gates buys my company. But maybe you're thinking, man, I'm in a bad way right now and I'm not sure what to do. And I don't know if I should throw in the towel or keep going. What are 3 key areas you think that women should focus on or anybody should focus on with an uncertain, because we're living in a transformational, uncertain time.
Mhm.
It's very similar to 9/11 in a different way, but it's similar in that way. What 3 things do you think business owners right now should focus on?
Well, the first thing I say is, are you going to drown in a puddle?
Meaning,
If you are going to drown, if you want to throw in the towel,
ah,
is it worth it? A puddle is not worth drowning in. Make it at least the ocean.
in other words, be a little fearless with risk, but don't take stupid risk. Take
Because
educated risk.
that's really the thing is I think that what we are now up against is people think that they need to wait. So what I say is like, what are you exactly waiting for? So you're on a Titanic. We just hit an iceberg. You're going to go and get yourself a blanket, sit on the deck of the Titanic and listen to the band playing? Is that what you want to do right now? Or are you going to go downstairs into your cabin and you're going to pack your stuff and get ready for de-embarkation at some fancy port? You are in the middle of the ocean. The only thing you should be doing to even be worth a life jacket is to get your butt on the deck, put that life jacket on, find a boat, row for your
Get in it.
life, right? That's what you should be doing. If you wait, I can tell you what's going to happen if you're going to wait. You're going to sink.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. If you drown in the ocean. Because I think what's happening right now, Vickie, is that we are being activated to take the bloody Band-Aids off with the hair and the dried blood, and it's really disgusting, and it's like, that's it. That's the wound. It's not healing. It's been there really for a long time. You really haven't had enough clients. You really haven't figured out your lead generation. You really don't have a client attraction system in place. You really don't know how to convert people. You're really kind of like in this infinity loop of disaster as a business owner, where you either find the jobs or you do the jobs, but you can't do both at the same time because you're out of money and you're too chicken to build up a proper sales system. That's where you are. Well, guess what? That's not working anymore. So,
love that you're saying this.
I mean, that's where we are at. So I think, and this is where Maria Shriver said this in a talk once. She says, if you don't feel fear, you don't need courage.
That's right.
You need more courage now than you have ever had.
That's
because
true.
I will guarantee you, in that dark room you're in, there is a light switch. You just forgotten it's there.
That's true. And I want to talk about this because I think it's really important, because a lot of times, Beate, this just drives me crazy. A lot of times, and I want to talk to every woman here, and I'll let you know, it's scrolling down below here. But a lot of times you listen to a pitch online from someone who's trying to sell you a course or something that doesn't actually help you. And what you've thrown together is exactly what she says. You don't actually have a funnel. You don't actually have a client gathering system. You really don't know who your avatar is. What you've done is put together an out-of-box thing and thrown it together and said, I hope this works. And what you need to do right now is really consider the risk of believing in yourself, not in somebody else's system, but believing in yourself, investing in yourself. And this is why you want to have a coach. It's like, if you have a coach right now who is like, everything is going to be fine, just go downstairs and relax, and you're sitting on the Titanic. And that's the advice that they give you. Because right now, the entire economy has slammed into an iceberg.
Yes.
And right now we're at the beginning where the front end is of them it's filling up with water, filling it, and it's going over the bulkhead. And so right now, if you have a coach or somebody is relax, you can do this, you can hustle back to and just sleep in the morning and we'll pull into port. It's going to be okay. They're lying to you. And here's the second thing that's so important. You want to have somebody who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and lived through it. And I will tell you, the percentage of really true consultants and coaches, the percentage that has done that is probably 1% to 2%. Anybody that's gone through what she went through can handle whatever you're going through and help you get through it. The question is, are you willing to be coachable and confront yourself and really grow your business acumen with someone in order to achieve the goal you want? Or are you just going to go spend another $10,000 on a business in a box that you hope to God works? Because that's the point of having a consultant and a coach. Just like, I mean, how many people do you know that have sold their company to Bill Gates?
Well, I want to add something to that, because you hit on something that I'm really passionate about, and that's the internet marketing lie. And the internet marketing lie is, if you only knew how to launch a product, then you would be okay. Then you do that, then you find out, oh, I still need a funnel. Then, funny enough, they have an affiliate program with a guy who does a funnel. And then if you only knew how to hack the funnel, then you'd be okay.
Yeah.
Then you do that, and they have an affiliate program with a guy that does the quiz that says, well, but you still have to get leads in the funnel. Now you need the quiz, and all you do is you pay the money, pay the money, pay the money. That's how this whole system is built, is to keep you in this perpetual idea of one more thing, one
Yep.
more thing. What you need, and that's, I think, why, Vickie, you and I are like sisters from a different mother, is that we go in and we just ask one very simple question. What is the overall strategy in the business model? Because once we have that, we can plug all the pieces you already paid for in and tell you where they go. This goes in lead generation. This goes in conversion.
That's
This,
right.
you break out in hives when you're on a stage. So the speaking from stage, probably not good for you, probably podcasting better. So we can help these strategies so that people are building businesses based upon their own abilities, desires, and passion, and not on this ethical, persuasive
That's right.
language.
Yes, the languaging that everybody's getting sucked dry in. It's important that you added this. And the reason it's so important is because we are moving into times where people are going to start losing their discernment as to what they're going to do as AI suddenly starts coming into view right now. We're going to be losing discernment and panicking. What do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? You're going to be trying a business in a box, etc. But what she just said, what's the business model? And it's so important for you to have the right people on your team, not a team of people, the right people on your team. And I know this because I've been through this. I have been through this just
Multiple times. Let me guess,
so many
multiple times. And you're going through this
Yeah.
probably right now because you have to make adjustments. I have to make adjustments.
Constantly.
We have to change the language. Now it's not about, how to find good clients. Now the headline is how to find clients in a recession.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
where are these hidden opportunities? How are you going to unlock the hidden opportunities for
Thank
your
you.
business?
Thank you. And I want to let you know while we're on this, because I want to be as transparent as possible. I'm so glad that you talked about the risk thing, because this morning I added to the division of one of my companies, and I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars adding this in. And I was thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, and feeling it, feeling it, feeling it. Is this the right move? Is this the right move? And you're like, that can't be the question you ask. It's, do you have the right things in place to make this move? And when I did that, and I was like, oh God, I felt settled. And then moving that money, that's what I do now. I have literally just funds that sit there so I can invest in my businesses as we go on. In the beginning, you don't, you're a little scared and everything else. But after you get as good as that as you are, the second build of your company is a lot easier to do after you get the experience than the first build of your company. The first iteration of your company, you're always going to get so clobbered. But you start knowing after a while what you need to have in place.
And you
And I
cut
love that
the
she
fat.
said that. It's like you have to learn that once.
Yes.
If you keep buying a business in a box, you keep having to learn that industry, that industry, that industry. You want to learn that business thing. If you learn it once, it's kind of like, I know how to cook and I know what ingredients to put in. It's like you learn it once and you can do it. And so then you can make a choice. Do I want to cook at home and eat at home or go out to dinner tonight? I'd rather have a home cooked meal. And you have choices then. You don't have choices on the internet getting those businesses in a box. I think every woman out there who isn't on this scroll going down to take her quiz right now is crazy. Here's the thing. You want your business to grow. So what's blocking the growth of your business? What's blocking you? Where is it? Don't you want to know? Because I think that's what's the most important thing that's being offered right now for free. Now, listen, if you're driving in the car, if you're listening on iHeartRadio or Pandora, wherever, relax, drive safe. The address that I'm going to talk about is in the scroll. It's in the show notes. You can have it, but I think everybody should go do this. You want to go to growthblockerquiz.com, growth growthblockerquiz.com. Take the quiz and find out where's the hole in your boat. When we hit this iceberg, it doesn't mean that the first thing it hit was, did it hit the back of your boat first? Where's the hole in your boat? That's the first thing you got to find out. And then the second thing is you want to get with Beate right then, because you want to be able to plug that hole in your boat as soon as possible. You don't want to wait till it's sinking. You want to get on that lifeboat. You want to know what you need to do now. Growthblockerquiz.com. It's free. What are you waiting for? It's free. So I think one of the coolest things that somebody has done is said, where is it that you have the hole in the boat? And I swear, if I would have had that 20 years ago, I would have taken up right immediately, because that's what people are struggling with. They don't realize what's their growth blocker. And I want to talk about this quiz a little bit and say, maybe your company's doing good. Maybe you're not in a bad way right now. Maybe you're at 250, 500,000, maybe $1 million a year already doing this. And you're thinking, ain't nothing wrong with my company. We're doing great. We had this growth over growth. I made this mistake too. You're laughing because so did you. You're like, we're fine. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. And you don't make the safety net. You don't make the safety net you need to make now. I want to know 3 things right now. And I know we're going a little bit over, guys, but I have her here and I'm trying to give you the absolute best information I can give you right now. 3 things people should be looking out for in their business based on the trajectory of our future. What growth things do you think people should be looking at or preparing for?
Well, the first one's easy. For all of you listening, I want you to please go wherever you pick up the Coffee Break Show with Vickie and subscribe and give her a 5-star review.
Thank you.
As this information is amazing. And please share this episode, maybe with a takeaway with one person that needs to hear what we talked about today, because we really took the Band-Aid off. This is not some internet marketing. She took me deep and she got a lot of stuff out of me that I think is very helpful. So that's number 1. Make sure you listen to this, share it, and share the wealth. Number 2,
thank you.
There's a 90% chance that your business model needs to be adjusted or tweaked.
Agreed.
Because we're in a different environment. So even if you feel that it's okay, I can guarantee you, if you don't look at the model right now, 6 months from now, you wished you had. So take a very hard look at what your business model is. Number 3, you can't take this personal. Failure is not personal. Failure is like when you forgot to update your GPS and then it put you in a cul-de-sac where you usually were able to get through. Now there's a guy with a sign that says, stop, there's construction. You are not throwing yourself on the ground. You're not throwing a temper tantrum. You're not going out. You're never going to drive again. You're a lousy driver. Your life has ended. You will never, ever, ever go anywhere ever again in your life. You just go, should have updated the GPS. So think about failure like the guy with the sign that says, this is the wrong way, and then just turn around, find another way.
Thank you.
You were cracking up on that one.
I was trying to not like, and when I do that, it obviously turns my face red. But I thought that was very good. And this is so important because 6 months from now, even the AI that we have right now is going to take a quantum leap. And that's what's happening. Change is not happening incrementally now. Change is taking quantum leaps. And so if you want to get ahead of it and you just say, let's look at my business model. Let me ask you something. Can somebody just say to you, hey, can I make an appointment? Can we just look at my business model? Can we go over and see what happened? Can you do that kind of consulting with them? And if they're saying, I'd like to get my company ready to sell, and maybe you don't get to sell your company to Bill Gates, but maybe you get to sell it to somebody else who's ready to buy it. Would you be able to help with that in that consulting, look at their business model and help them get their company ready to be sold or moved or shifted? Because we are in the age of shift and it's quantum shifting. It's both spiritually, mindset, business,
It's on all
life,
levels, every
all
single
levels
level.
is
Yes,
quantum shifting.
yes, yes,
And it's like there is no slow, easy path to go. It is going to happen like that. And this is the importance of having this here. It's also
yes,
the reason why everybody should, if you're looking at your growth trajectory and you're basing it on the past, it's going to be wrong. That's the importance of looking at your growth blocker and taking that growth blocker quiz,
yes,
because
exactly.
the growth right now,
Mhm.
if it's based on the past, in the next 6 months it's going to be
It's gonna
obsolete
change. Mhm.
and gone. I want to say that it has been, I could keep you on another hour actually. I have, another so many questions going through my head, and I feel so comrade. I have never once sold a company to Bill Gates, but I've sold a company several times. And so I think that what you went through is heroic, but more than that, it's the hero's journey. In the end of it, you can't take your company or your money with you. You can only take who you've become and your mindset with you. And I can tell that the tenacity that is you is so you, and you're wanting to share it with other women. It's inspiring. Other people, it doesn't matter, women or men, but women. I want to talk about the women's code. That's the last thing I want to just find out about. And then how can they get a hold of you other than go take that quiz, growthblockerquiz.com, growth, GROTH, growth blocker, BLOCKER, quiz, QUIZ.com. And so relax. Everything's going to be in the show notes, all the information she's going to give you. I know you're driving around going, I got to speak to this woman. Yes, you do. And here's how you can get a hold of her.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two things to be shared. So number one, for full transparency, we actually just changed our business model because this is happening where people say, "Can we just talk to you?" So I've actually trained two business growth advisors, and I made them available to talk to. So all you have to do is you go to uncoversession.com, schedule your 15-minute complimentary session, and we'll help you at least figure out what the heck is going on. And then from there on, we may or may not take the next step. So that's what we are doing because we're committed to helping people succeed. So if
Yeah.
that resonates, go uncoversession.com and just schedule that talk. Number
Now, I
two,
want to make sure, is it uncovery sessions?
uncovery. Yes, it's it's
Uncovery.
between uncover and recovery. So I made it one word, uncoverysession.com.
Love that.
Yes.
Uncovery session. UNCOVERY or
Yes.
IEY
Yes.
.com. And
Exactly.
just make the appointment. Listen, it's free 15 minutes, and you get somebody who's actually been there, done that, won that, grown that, built that, and overcome that. And that to me is important. You're talking with somebody who's so experienced. And I feel so safe moving my entire audience over to there to get that 15 minutes for free. Do me a favor, though. You make sure you tell them a Vickie from the Coffee Break Show sent
Yes,
me.
please do, because that, again, I want all of you to really recognize that what Vickie does is a labor of love, and the energy, time, and frankly, the money that goes into it
Mhm.
it's a significant investment in your growth. So giving her a little bit of love back is probably very appreciated.
It sure is. Thank you for that. I love when somebody plugs for me. That's
Of
always
course,
so
it's so
good.
much better, and that way it's like it's coming from me, it's not coming from you. So, and let's talk about the women's code here for just a second. I have found that women are, before we get to go in the world and declare all the things that other people are doing wrong and what has been done to us, which is widely documented, we first have to figure out what our own code is. And so based on my experience on my book, Happy Woman, Happy World, I talk about my story. I talk about how women can learn some of these concepts that I've developed, mainly ego rhythm, on how to focus on one thing at a time and not get crazy with all the demands that women have all at once. And I found that women are often just horrible with other women because they
Yes.
come from a scarcity principle that there's
Yes.
only like a certain percentage available for women, and somehow everything else must go to men. But if we are 50% of the population, then shouldn't be 50% automatically be ours? So I
Yeah.
decided to set up the Women's Code to teach women how to operate from a mindset of half of it is ours.
That's right. Thank you. That's amazing. I want to say it's been absolutely so significant to meet you. I feel such an incredible sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, me
Here's what
too.
I will guarantee. I will guarantee that I will have her back on the Coffee Break Show as we're going through this transition. And we'll make it so that you can ask her direct questions as
Ooh.
we go live on there so that your audience can be there. Beate, thank you for being on the show with me today. Thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for just the amazing conversation we had today. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. And this will go in my book as one of the best and most enjoyable interviews I have had. And I have had many. So thank you.
Thank you. Listen, this is a Coffee Break Show. We're on every single week. And I promise you, next week, we're going to have somebody just as rocking good. I'll talk to you guys next week.